Good morning, guys. Am I audible to all of you?
Good morning, sir. Audibly.
And my screen is also visible to all of you, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, yesterday we have discussed the projection operators, right? So as part of projection operator, we have discussed what is the use and how you can use the select operator and how you can use the select many operator, right? So most of the time you will use the select operator, but very rarely you might be use the select many operator. Who is on mute? Okay, all right. So today we are going to discuss the filtering methods, right? So filtering methods means what? So before understanding what are the filtering methods available in LINQ, right? Let us first discuss what is filtering, right? See, filtering is nothing but the process to get only those records from a database that satisfy the given condition. For example, it might be possible that you are having a very big table, right? Having thousands of thousands records. But while you do not want to fetch all the thousands records, right? You only want to get few records which satisfy your condition. If you want to implement that, right? Let us talk about the SQL Server point of view. From a SQL Server, if you are having a table which contain both CAC, both electrical, mechanical, electronics, all department students. Now my requirement is to only fetch those students who belongs to CAC department. Then how you can implement this? How you can achieve this? For that purpose, you need to use some where clause. Yes or no? You have tried select star from student where branch equals to CAC. So in that case, where is nothing but your clauses, right? Which will filter the data from all the available data, and it will only return those data which satisfy the given condition. What is the condition in that case? Branch equals to CAC, right? So similarly, filtering is nothing but it's a process, and it is a process to filter the data. Only it will return those data which satisfy the given condition, right? For example, you are having some employees, right? And you want to fetch the employees whose salary is 50,000. Suppose there are students who are having the marks, right? And you only want to fetch those students which are having 80% above marks, right? Or you want to only you want to face the employees who's having experience is more than 6 years, which department is IT. What it means? It means it is also possible that you can apply multiple conditions. Your condition is that if the employee experience is 6 years and if the employee department is IG, then please fetch those employees and give me the list. So basically, you might be having different kind of scenarios in real-time application where you might be go for filtering, right? Then in that case, what are the filtering methods available in LINQ? So basically, there are two filtering methods available in LINQ, like in our yesterday session. One is select, another is select many. Most of the time, 99% of time you will use select, and 1% you might be use select many. In the same way, 99% you are going to use this where method, and only 1% you are going to use this OfType method, right? So it might be possible that you never used this OfType method in your application. I never personally never used this OfType method in any of my projects, but in my all projects, right, I'm using this where method. So basically, we are going to understand these two methods. What is the use of where method? How you can use this where method? And what is the use of OfType method? And what is the need of OfType method in real-time application? That is what we are going to discuss first, right? So what is where method, right? If you look at the definition, then you will see that there are two overloaded versions of the where method is available. First of all, you can see the first parameter is this enumerable of t sources. So what it means? It means it is an extension method. So whenever you see the first parameter as this and it specify one class or interface, means it's a extension method, right? And second parameter, it is taking one func predicate. So func means what? It's a generic delegate, right? If you know, we have already discussed what are delegate, how delegate works, and what is the use of delegate. So similarly, you can see this is the extension method, which takes two parameter. One first parameter you don't consider it is the parameter, because it is just make sure that it is an extension method which you can access by using enumerable, right? The second parameter, it is nothing but the predicate. Predicate means you can consider it's a delegate. So you have to specify one delegate, and that delegate is going to be executed for each element available on the collection when you access this where method. We will see this practically. And here the delegate contains two parameters, t source and boolean. T source is nothing but your data source, and boolean is nothing but it's a value which will indicate whatever the condition you specify, whether that condition satisfy or not. If that condition satisfy, it will return true. If not satisfy, it will return false, right? And the second thing you can see here, the same signature, but here the generic delegate not taking two parameters, it is taking three parameters, right? You know what, now whenever we are using the func generic delegate, you can pass any number of parameters, but the last parameter is the output parameter. So in this case, it is taking one parameter, that is the t source, and in this case, it is taking two parameter, t source, int, and boolean. What is this integer? You know what is the source. T source means your data source. It might be a collection, right? Boolean means it is the output parameter. What is this int? Int is nothing but the index position, right? Suppose you are returning 5 elements. What is the index position of those 5 elements in the data source? That index position it is going to return, right? So basically there are two overloaded versions available in LINQ for the where extension method. And whenever you are using the predicate, in the predicate, you need to provide the condition. And while you are providing the condition, you might be need to use these conditional operators. How we are going to use these conditional operators, that we will see practically. So before proceeding further, we need to understand what is this predicate. So we have already discussed in our delegate session that predicate is nothing but it's a delegate. And by using that predicate, you can provide our condition. We can provide the condition by creating one instance of a func, by creating a method, right? Or by using also lambda expression, we can provide the predicate. So let us understand how to use this predicate with one example, right? Let me copy the code and paste it here. So basically, I'm having one integer list. So you can say this is my collection. So this is my data source. So from this data source, I want to fetch the numbers which is greater than 5. So see, gradually what my planning is, I will start with the simple example and I will move to the complex example, and then I will move into the more complex example with more conditions. So let us start with the simple example, or you can see the basic example, right? So in this case, you can see I'm creating a collection of integer type. And here I'm storing some 10 integer numbers. Now my requirement is to fetch the numbers which is greater than 5. So basically in my output, I want these 5 numbers. So let us see how we can do this using both method syntax and as well as using the query syntax. So you know what is the method syntax. This is the data source. This is the where conditional operator, right? So where conditional operator I have used here, and I have specified num such that num is greater than 5. So basically what will happen in this case, this is nothing but your predicate. So this is nothing but your predicate. In this predicate, what it will do, so it will access each number from this collection, and then it will check whether that number is greater than 5 or not. If that number is greater than 5, it will return true, and that number will be coming as part of our result. If that number is not greater than 5, for example, for the first number, this condition is going to be false. So it will not, it will return false. For the second number, this condition is going to be false. And for this number onwards, the condition is going to be true. For this, the condition is going to be true. That means from this onwards, the condition is going to be true, right? Then these 5 numbers will be written as part of your query, right? And here you can see I have not used the toList method or toArray method. So in this position, it is only creating the query. Right now, if you want to execute this query at this point of time, then you need to use, you can use the toList method. So once I use the toList method, the query is generated, which is going to be executed on our in-memory data object, right? So that is the use of toList method. If you remove the toList method, only the query is going to be created, and if you apply the toList method, the query is going to be executed at this point, right? And whatever the result written, that I am storing inside this variable. Now, how I can use the same thing using the query syntax. In query syntax, like the where extension method, the where operator is also available. But see, if I right click on this and go to extension, right? So you can see there are two extension methods. So it is taking me to the extension method, and this extension method is available in system.enumerable class, right? And now what I'm trying to do, I'm calling this, I'm right click here and I'm going to the definition of this where. Right now click and go to definition. Again, it is taking me to the same. So behind the scene, whether you use the operator or whether you use the extension method, if you use the operator internally, it is using the LINQ extension method. So there is no difference in performance whether you use extension method or whether you use this operator, because internally it is using the extension method only. So I'm selecting all element from the from this collection. Then I'm checking each element whether that element is greater than 5 or not. If this condition is satisfied, that element is going to be returned. So if so in this case, this 5 element condition satisfied, those 5 elements will be written. Again, in this case, the query is only going to be generated, not executed. If you want to execute the query at this point of time, then what you need to do, you need to prepare this within the bracket, so that this is my query syntax, and then then you have to apply this LINQ.toList method. So at this point of time, the query is going to be generated as well as executed. If you do not want to apply this extension method at this point of time, don't no issue. Whenever you are accessing the elements within the for each loop, automatically the query, right, what is prepared using this LINQ syntax, that is going to be executed and the result will come, and the for each loop, this number will access each result from here, and that it is going to print in the console window. Now let me run the application. Right, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Any question from anyone?
No, sir.
Okay, now whenever you mouse over to where extension method in the above example, then Visual Studio will show the following intelligence. What intelligence it is showing? It is saying that where integer func int bool predicate. So as you can see in the above, is a predicate, expect one input parameter of type integer and it returns a Boolean value, right? So if you mouse point over here, then you can see this is the where extension method. It is expecting one func delegate where the first parameter is integer and the second parameter is Boolean. Boolean means this is the output parameter, whether the condition what we just specified is true or false, that is going to be returned, right? So now what we need to do? So we need to understand what is func delegate, right? What is delegate? Already we have discussed these things, right? If you want to know, then you can go and watch this generic delegate in C#, right? So I have already discussed these things. You can just go and have a look at this article, right? So here we have already discussed what is func delegate, what is action delegate, what is what is generic delegates, right? Func, action, and predicate. These three delegates we have already discussed, right? So the lambda expression, if you see in the where extension method, we have passed the lambda expression. What is this lambda expression? The lambda expression that we passed to the where extension method in the above example operates on integer data type and should return a Boolean value, else we will get a runtime error. We will get a compile time error. See, in this case, whatever the lambda expression you specify, that should return a Boolean value. If it is not returning a Boolean value, then we will get a compilation error, right? So the following line of code, right, exactly does the same thing. In our application, you can see we have written this thing. So basically, what exactly this where extension method accept the where extension method except one predicate, right? So one func action delegate. So what I can do here, so I can create an func action delegate. So this is my func predicate. So here I'm mentioning I such that I less than 5. This is my condition. And then I can pass this func delegate to here. Right. So that is also possible. So you need to create an instance of a func generic delegate. and then in the func generic delegate, you need to provide the condition, and that predicate you can pass as a parameter to this extension method. So with this, you can also run the application and you will get the output as expected. So there is no issue, because whatever the condition we have created here, that is going to be executed here for each element that is available inside this collection. So instead of creating this instance, so I can directly pass this one here. So if you pass this one, then it is also going to be fine. So it is also going to be execute, and you will also get the output as expected, right? So basically it should accept one integer value and it should return me some boolean values, right? So instead of that, what we can also create, we can also create a separate method, right? So basically what exactly the, okay, so guys, tell me, what is the use of a delegate? So delegate basically what it means? It means we are having one method that contains some logic, and that logic we want to execute whenever we execute the delegate instance. So as it is expecting some delegate, so can I create a separate method which signature is same as the func generic delegate, and can I pass that method here directly? Is that possible? Yes, that is absolutely possible, and we have already discussed that in our previous I mean in our delegate. So if you go to the definition of func generic delegate, right? So let me go to the definition. So you can say it is expecting one input parameter and one output parameter, right? So one input parameter and one output parameter. So let me go to the definition. So this is, you can accept this is one input parameter and this is the output parameter. So the signature of this method is exactly same as the signature of the func generic delegate. So what this method is doing? This method is checking whether whatever the number it is taking, whether that number is greater than 5 or not. If it is greater than 5, it is returning true. If it is not greater than 5, it is returning false. So then what I'm doing, I'm passing that function to this where extension method, and to this function I'm passing the integer number. So now whatever collection contains, so each number you can access using this variable, and that number I'm passing to this method, and that method will return me true or false. If the number is greater than 5, it is going to return me true, and that will be stored, that will be written as part of our output. If the number is not greater than 5, then in that, or if the number is equals to also 5, then in that case this method will return me false, and that will not be part of our output. So so the number which are greater than 5, that you can see in the output, right? Let me run the application. So once I run the application, then you will see the number which are greater than 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right. So basically just have a look at the delegate session or delegate videos, right? Or delegates when we discussed, you will get more idea about what is this func generic delegate, how exactly the delegate works, right? What is the input parameter, what is the output parameter, how, I mean, you will get more idea in our delegates. Right now we need to use the second overloaded version, right? Where you can see the func generic delegate accept three parameters. One is the source, integer, and boolean. Let us see this with an example. And this integer is nothing but it is going to return the index position of the element. And in .NET, right, we already know the index position is what is the index position? The position of the index is starting from 0 and ending with the number of elements minus 1, right? So basically I'm working with the same data source which contains these elements, right? So my intention is now so what I'm trying to do is I want to fetch the odd number from this collection. So what is odd number? If the number is not divisible by 2, then that number is a odd number. If the number is divisible by 2, then that is a even number. So my intention is I need to fetch the odd number from this collection, right? So from this collection, so let me show you what is the logic required, right? So now from integer list, I'm using the select extension method, and you know what is the use of the select extension method. And there are two overloaded version I have discussed yesterday. One is accessing the elements and one is accessing the index position of that element, right? And I'm creating an anonymous object, and inside this anonymous object, I'm storing the number, whatever the number, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 that I'm storing, and what is the index position of that number, 0, 1, 2, 3, like this. I'm storing those positions, right? So first of all, I have used these things, right? Now, second thing, what I'm going to do, I'm applying the condition. So what is the condition? The condition is where x such that x dot numbers modulus 2 equals to not equals to 0, right? So what it means? It means currently from this list, right? Try to observe. This is an integer list, only contain integer number. From this integer list, I'm fetching the number as well as the index position of that number. And the index position for this number is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 9. So now I'm creating an anonymous object, right? This is an anonymous object. So from this anonymous object, how many properties are there within this anonymous object? Two properties. What are the properties? One property name is index. Sorry, one property name is numbers. Another property name is index position, right? And these numbers will contain the actual number, right? Actual number means, give me 1 minute, guys. Right. So basically this select clause will project the output. So project the output means it is projecting the numbers as well as the index position of each number. And we have already discussed this extension method yesterday, right? And from this, so right now it is one anonymous method. If you are not interested for anonymous method, so what you can do, you can create a class, right? I'm creating a class numbers, class, what I can say, odd numbers, right? And this class odd numbers containing two properties. One is public integer, I can say number, right? Public integer number, and I can say the other one is public integer index position, right? So if you are not interested with anonymous method, then you can write this odd numbers, yeah, right? That's fine. So now you can see, if you write this, then what is the output? This is going to be number, and this is going to be index position, right? And from this number, okay, let me give this as a numbers, right? So from this numbers, what I'm saying whether that number is divisible by 2 or not. If that number is modulus division by 2 not equals to 0, means this is an odd number. And then I'm selecting that number, right? Selecting that number, I'm accessing that number using data.number. I'm accessing that index position, right? And once you access, right, even you can also use here the odd number again. I can also use the odd number class here. So you can access like this. So numbers and index position, right? So now it is only containing the numbers which are odd and the index position of that number, right? So now you can also access like this. So first of all, what I'm doing here, from this collection, I'm fetching all the numbers and their corresponding index position, right? So corresponding index position, right? And then what I'm trying to do, and then I'm applying the where filtering operator, and I'm then checking whether that number is divisible by 2 or not. Now I can run the application and it will only display me the numbers which are odd, right? 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and you can see the index position 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Right now, if you are thinking that it's very difficult for me to understand, then what I can do here is I can split this into two parts. So this is my first query, right? Which is containing what? It is my first query, which is containing the which is basically why I'm getting this error. This is started, this is ending. Integer list, select number. This is starting, ending, new numbers.
Yeah, it makes sense because you're putting a semicolon there and the next expression is not yet finished.
Right. So now you will understand this very easily, right? So this is the things we have already discussed, right? So what we discussed, now integer list that select number and index position, right? So at this point of time, if I run the query, right? So what it will give? It will give all the numbers, right? Let me show you all numbers with index position, right? All number with index position, right? So now here it will print me what? Now it will print odd numbers with index position. See, so this syntax you know very well from the collection. I'm fetching the number and the corresponding index position, and here I'm creating and I'm here projecting the data to odd numbers class, right? So even if you want, then you can also ignore this. If you ignore this, that is also fine. But I'm creating this class, right? And then I'm printing the data and showing the values, right? Then what I'm doing now from this odd number collection, I'm applying the where condition, right? I'm applying the where condition, and the where condition means, right? It is going to filter the data. And what is the condition? The condition is if the number, right? If the number, if it's better to use number instead of a numbers. Right? It is better to use number. Right? So what exactly it's saying? It's saying whatever the data content in this collection, if that number is modulus division by 2, and here I'm using the operation not equals to. That means if 1, then it will return 0. If 3, it will return 2. If 5, it will return 2. Right? Then select those number into this type. Right? So in this case, you will see both the data, right? Fast collection, right? Fast operation will give you all the data and their corresponding number, index position you can see, and the odd number is C. So whatever, so basically here I'm doing two operations, right? Now next what I have done, so I have just mixed these two operation with one operation. How? By putting these things, right? So I simply put these things and remove these things. So two operations into one operation, right? So now you will only get the same data, 13579. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right. So now that is fine, right? So even if you want, you can also write the same thing using the query syntax, right? Let me write this. This is the method syntax. Now I'm going to write the same thing using the query syntax. Let me take this to a different class. Right. So if you want, you can go with the anonymous type. If you want, then you can create a class, right? So you can see from, right, you can see right from number in integer select integer list select, so number that index, I'm projecting the output to a new type. So instead of this, you can also write like this, new odd numbers, right? So you have to provide this as number, right? Right, and then I'm applying the where conditional operator, and then I'm selecting the new. again, right, from this anonymous type, and then I'm printing the data. So this is the same query what I have written using method syntax, using the query syntax. You will get the same output. So first of all, I'm applying the select clause, I'm fetching the number and the index position, and I'm projecting that number and the index position to this output. And from this output, or you can say from this type, I'm applying the where condition, and once the where condition is satisfied, whatever the result coming, again I'm projecting it into a new type, right? So this is how you can use the second overloaded version, right? So clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Clear? Okay. So next, I'm going to discuss some complex examples. So complex examples in the sense, so see this type of example, whatever I have shown, you will not find, right? Mostly you will find some complex example. Complex example means complex data type. So let us first create a complex class. Let me create an employee class. Okay, go to the employee class and copy paste the code, right? So this is my class. And you can see this class having ID, name, gender, salary, and a technology array. So it's not an array, it's a collection. And this is my get employees method, which is having few employee information, and what and each employee working in which technologies. That information also I have put here. And this is going to be my data source. So here you can see I'm creating ID, name, gender, salary, as well as technologies on which that employee is working. So this get employee method is going to be my data source. In real time, you will get this data from the database, right? So that is my data source. Now what is our requirement? Now we need to fetch all the employees whose salary is greater than 50,000. For this, what we need to do? We need to use LINQ extension, where extension method, and we need to specify the condition as this, right? And this is using the method syntax, and this is using the query syntax. Let's see how we can do this. So our requirement is to fetch all the employees whose salary is greater than 50,000, right? So if that is the case, then how you can write the query? See, this is the query syntax from employee in employee.get employee. This is my data source. From this data source, I'm fetching each employee to this variable, and on each employee, right? On each employee, I'm applying the condition that if that employee salary is greater than 50,000, then select that employee. So we do not know whether one employee, two employee, zero employee, five employee, all employee, their salary is greater than 50,000 or not. So, but if the employee salary is 50,000, that employee information, it will return by this query. So at this point, the query is just created, not executed. If you want to execute the query, right, then what you need to do, you just need to call the toList method, right? toList method, right? So once I call the toList method, then you can see the type is going to be list of employee, right? But if I remove the toList method, then what will be the type? The type is IEnumerable of employee, right? So whenever you are seeing IEnumerable of employee, means the query is just created, not executed. And once you see a toList or toArray, whatever the apply method execution you applied, then that you can see it's a toList of employee, means the query is executed, right? Again, you can see here IEnumerable of employee. Why? Because we have not applied the toList method, right? So here, this is my data source and this is my condition, right? So, but at this point, I have not executed the syntax, right? Not executed the query. If you want to execute, then what you need to do? You need to call the toList method. That's it. And here I'm specifying the salary using lambda expression, and here I'm specifying the salary using the employee.salary, right, property, right? So once you executed this, then what you will see, it will print you the employee name, employee salary, and employee gender. So, and if that employee having some technology, right, if technology is not null, and if technology count is greater than 0, then I'm just printing what are the technology is given to that employee, right, or on which technologies that employee is working. And if not, then I'm just printing technology not available, right? So now let me run the application. See, See this name Preeti, the technology C Sharp, Java, C++, Anurag technology not available, Sambit technology not available, Sushant ADO.NET C Sharp LINQ. Whether this is fine or not, let's verify. Coming to here, right? See, you can see uh, these two employees having salary, right? This is one employee Anurag, whose salary is 55,000. So this employee Sambit doesn't having any technology. So Sambit doesn't have any technology. And next one is Anurag. Where is Anurag? Anurag, his salary is also greater than 50,000 and he doesn't have any technology. So that is what you can say here. So this is another example. Any question from anyone related to this example? Right?
No, sir. Clear.
Okay, fine. Okay, let us proceed and see few more examples. See, in this case, if you see, we have only applied one condition. Now, if you want to apply multiple condition using the where extension method, is that possible? Yes, that is also possible. So what is our requirement? Now we need to fetch all employees whose gender is male and whose salary is greater than 55 lakhs, right? So here we have two conditions. The first condition is gender equals to male. He should be a male employee, and the second condition is his salary must be greater than 5 lakhs, right? So you can see there are two conditions. If we have more than one condition, then we need to use AND operation or operation, logical or, right? So AND operation means what? If both the conditions satisfy, then it will return true. Or condition means what? If any of the conditions satisfy, then it will return true. So what is our requirement? We need to fetch all the employee whose gender is male, and means we need to use this operation. If the requirement is fetch all the employees whose gender is either male or whose salary is greater than 50,000, then in that case we need to use OR condition. So that is important, that you need to understand what is exactly your business requirement, whether the two condition is mandatory, or if any condition is satisfied, we need to return that record. So based on that condition, based on that requirement, you need to choose whether you need to use AND condition or ON condition if you are having multiple conditions, right? So let me show you this practically. See, right? So here you can see this is using core syntax. Employee dot salary is greater than 5 lakhs and employee dot gender equals to male, and select the employee. Here employee dot get employees where MP dot salary is greater than 5 lakhs and employee dot gender equals to male. And here I'm applying the toList method. Means what? At this time you will see the return type of the data type of this method syntax variable is going to be list of employee. So what is the return type of a query syntax variable? Can anybody tell me? What is the return type of this variable? Guys, what is the return type of the query syntax variable? If you know, then tell me no. If you don't know, then say no, we don't know. But you have to speak. It's not like that you should be ideal in the session.
It's an employee.
Sorry? Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it is wrong or whether it is right, that doesn't matter. But you have to say something. What should be the return type of this query syntax variable in this case?
It's employee type.
Employee. Employee means it's I enumerable of employee or I queryable of employee or I list of employee or list of employee. What is the type? So like this here, list of employee, you can see the type is list of employee. What should be the type? So in this case, do you have apply any kind of a toList or any 2 methods in this query syntax?
It's going to be enumerable.
So it should be enumerable of employee because we have not applied the toList method. So whenever you are seeing enumerable of employee means the query is just generated. not executed. And if you apply this toList method means the query is generated and executed, and that's why you can see the output list of employee is going to contain the data, and here it is containing the query, right? So this is both the syntax, and here I have applied the ampersand, double ampersand means the logical and operator, right? Now, so here I'm using the for each loop to access the employees, right, who satisfy the given condition. I'm printing the name of those employees, salary, gender, and whether they are having any technology or not, that what information I'm also printing, right? So let me run the application code and show you the output. See, only 2 employees satisfy the given condition, and those employee information is printed on the console. Clear, guys? How to apply multiple condition within the where extension method.
Yes.
Okay, now let us discuss a more complex example to understand the LINQ extension method, right? Let us say more complex example, right? Now we are going to, okay, let me format this. Okay. Now we are going to provide multiple conditions with the custom operation and project the data to an anonymous type. So here I'm using anonymous type, but if you want, then you can also use a custom type, right? What is our business requirement? So we need to fetch all the employees whose salary is greater than or equals to 50,000, right? Technology should not be null. You understand my requirement? So we need to fetch all the employees whose salary is greater than or equals to 50,000, and technology should not be null, means he should be working on any technology. And we need to project the following information to an anonymous type. We need to provide the what is the employee name. We need to provide that name as it is. We need to provide the gender as it is, and in our employee we are having the salary column. So what we need to do, we need to provide the monthly salary. So annual salary is 50,000. So we need to provide the monthly salary. For that purpose, I am doing salary divided by 12. So this will given you the monthly salary. So this is our requirement. So let me copy the code and paste it here. Right? So employee.get employee, our 2 conditions, one is salary should be greater than 50,000, and employee.technology, it should not be null, not equals to null. If these 2 conditions satisfy, then I'm projecting the employee information to an anonymous type. Why I'm saying anonymous type? Because I have not specified any type. If I have not specified any type, then it is by default going to be anonymous type. So what is the name of the employee, right? That is employee name, that is gender, and this is going to be your monthly salary, right? And the same thing I can also do using the method syntax. Within the where extension method, I can provide the condition, right? Both the condition I have provided here, and I'm selecting or projecting the data to a new anonymous type. And then I'm applying the toList method, means the query is executed at this point of time. And then I'm using this to print the name, gender, and the monthly salary. Now run the application and see the output. Right, 3 employees who satisfy the above 2 conditions, right? This is the monthly salary, and this is the name, and this is the gender. Clear, guys? अरे भाई कुछ तो बोलो.
Yes, sir. Clear.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fitting ideal doesn't make good sense, right? You have to contribute, you have to say something, right? I'm giving full chance to you guys to contribute from your end. Okay, so basically this is how you need to work with where extension method, and how you need to work with the select method. Because why I'm discussing these 2 from the beginning, because these 2 methods are going to be used in every and each classes, right? If you are using a LINQ, means 2 mandatory things you are going to use. One is where extension method, and one is a select method, right? If you do not understand the use and necessary of these 2 methods, then you cannot understand the LINQ, right? These are the basic sessions. So basic means these basic things you should know. Once you know these basic things, then it will make you easy to understand the advanced concept of LINQ, right? So this is how the where extension method work. This is how the select method work in LINQ. The next filtering operator, what we are going to discuss is OfType, right? As I mentioned, this OfType is rarely used, but there is some scenario where you need to use this OfType method. So the OfType method is used to filter specific data from a data source based on the type we pass to this operator. What it means? It means suppose I'm creating a collection. I'm creating a array list. Suppose I'm creating a array list. Array list is available in a different namespace. What is the namespace? Can anybody tell me? Using system dot collections, right? So it's a non-generic collection. So can I store array list dot add? Can I store some integer values like 100? Can I store some value like 200? Can I store some string value? Can I store some another string value? Can I store these things?
Yes.
Is this possible? Yes or no? Am I getting any comparison error? No. That means this is possible. Why it is possible? That is the question. Why it is possible? Because the add method what we are using here, it accept the parameter, it is taking the parameter of an object type, and object is the superclass of all type in .NET. That concept we already know, and we have already discussed this array list class, right? So array list means it's a collection of a non-generic collection type. It operates on object data type. Object data type means whatever value we want we can store. Doesn't matter whether it's a integer type, string type, or any complex class type. So no matter, you can store all the type of data, and this is the use of array list, right? Now, what is our requirement? If your collection contains multiple different types of data, now my requirement is to fetch only the type which are integer, only fetch the data whose type is integer, right? In my output, I only want to fetch these two values. I don't want to fetch these two values, or even my requirement is to fetch these two values, only string values, whatever available inside this collection or inside this data source, that what I want to retrieve. I don't want to retrieve this integer number. If this is the case, then in situations like this, we need to use the LINQ OfType operator. Clear, guys? How to test this, that is what we are going to discuss. But why we need to use OfType operator means, if your collection contains many different types of data, and if you want to fetch a specific type of data from all the available types, then we need to use OfType operator. And if you go to the definition, then you will see that the definition is this one, right? It doesn't take any parameters, right? So see, this is your collection. So list of objects, right? So if you are creating a collection of object data type, then you can store any type of value, because object means what? You can store any type of value from this object, right? As you can see, it is containing string value, it is containing integer value. Now my requirement is to fetch only the integer values, right? Now my requirement is to fetch only the integer values. And if you see this OfType operator, it is taking one p result parameter, right? This method doesn't take any parameter, but while using the OfType method, then you need to specify what type of value you want to fetch from the collection, right? I want to fetch only the integer values from this data source collection. Then what you need to do? You have to use data source dot OfType. Here you need to specify the type, what type of values you want to fetch from this data source. I want to fetch the integer values. So you have to specify in. I want to fetch only the string value. You have to specify string here. And then if you want to execute that query at that point, at that line, then you have to use toList method. Otherwise, you can also use this integer data within a for each loop that will give you the result, right? Let me run this application, right? So this is my data source. From this data source, it contains both string and integer values. I only want to return the integer values, and then I'm using a for each loop, right? Now let me run this application. Right, you can see this is the output. So ideally, I never used this OfType in any of my project, but if in such requirement comes to you that you are calling one API, right, from your application, that API returning some string values, some integer values, and you want to look through only the string values, or if you want to show only the integer values, then in that case you can use this OfType. Right? Otherwise, there is no such use of this method in your application. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is how. So in this example, we are using OfType method with the method syntax. Right now, let me show you how you can use the OfType method in the query syntax. But in query syntax, there is no such operator called OfType is available. So what we need to use? We need to use the each operator. We need to use the each operator, right? So let's say how you can do this using the query syntax. This is the same data source from name in data source. So we are fetching all the values from this data source, and then we are checking where name is string, whether that name what you are returning, right, is a string value. If it is a string, then it will return true, and in that case I'm selecting this. So in this case, string name in string data, you will see all the string values here, right? We have to use this each operator, right? So what I'm doing here, I'm checking whether this name is string. Right now, if you want to return only the integer values, then you have to write int, and here you need to specify int, right? And then you need to run, and in this case, you will see only the integer numbers are going to be displayed on the console. Clear, guys? You have to use this each operator. Clear?
Yes.
Right. So now we are going to use OfType operator with a condition. So what is the condition? That means we want to fetch only. Okay, let me first type the query. So by looking at this OfType operator, what we can understand is this is the data source which contains many different types of data. Of the all data types data, we are only interested with the integer data. Right, and again we are providing the condition that if that integer value is greater than 30, then only fetch that data. So basically, what is our requirement out of this collection? We are only interested with the integer type values, and that is to we only need to return those integer numbers which is greater than 50. Sorry, which is greater than 30. So 30 means in this case, say you will see this 40 and 50 will be returned, and the same thing. And what I'm doing here, this is the one condition. Now suppose your requirement is to fetch only the string values whose length is greater than 3 characters. Then what is how you can do this? See, here you can see from name in data source, where name is string, so it should be string, and name dot to string dot length, right? If that length is greater than 3, then only return those names. So in this case, you will see the first collection, the first for each loop will print the numbers which is greater than 30, and second the for each loop which is going to print the string values whose length is greater than 3 characters, right? Let me run the application and show you the output. See 50 and 40, and you can see all the names which are greater than 3 characters are printed here. Clear, guys? Any question from anyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No
No
question, sir.
question.
Okay, so that is fine. Okay, so next what we are going to discuss, set operator, right? And I know you already know the use of this operators, right? If you are having the experience of a SQL, then you might know what is the use of a distinct, except, intersect, and union methods, right? So set operator. What we mean by set operator? Set operator are basically produce the result set based on the presence and absence of element within the same or a different data source, right? So whenever you are working with set operator, give me 1 minute, guys. Okay, so set operator means what? It means it will produce the result set based on the presence and absence of elements within the same and different data sources, right? What it means? It means whenever we are working with set operator, we have either a single data source or some operators are also need two different data sources. And then based on the elements that is present in the data source or absence in the data source, it will produce the result set, right? For example, if you see, right? So, for example, if you are a data source and that data source contain 10 elements, out of 10 elements, few elements are repeated. Now it is your requirement to only fetch the unique elements from the data source. If the element appeared twice, I don't want to show that element twice in the application or in the output. I only want to show only once that data in the output. Then for that purpose, you need to use the distinct operator. So you need to use a distinct method when you want to remove the duplicate data or record from a data source. Similarly, except method means what? Now we need to use the except method when we want to return all the elements from the first data source which do not exist in the data source. That means this method required two data sources, but this data distinct method, it required only one data source, right? This method required two data, except means the data which is present in the first data source but not in the second data source. That is what we are going to return. So what is this intersect? Intersect means it required again two data sources and it is going to return the common elements, right? This method is used to return the common element from both the data sources. What it means? It means whichever element present in the first data source, if it is present in the second data source, then it is going to return that element, right? And the union means this method is used to return all the elements which are present either in the first data source or in the data source. That means it combines the result from both the data sources. If data source 1 contain 5 element, data source contain 2 contain 5 element, that means it will going to return you 10 elements including the duplicate elements, right? So this is how these are the four different set operations that we need to discuss. And this is the basic definition. But once we start discussing the uses and in detail, then you will get more idea and there are more things to understand related to these data sources, right? Let us start discussing with the distinct method because people are getting confused how exactly the distinct method is work in your value data type, how exactly the distinct method is work in your user defined data type, why it is not working with user defined data type, why it is working with your value data type, how I can make sure that the complex type should work as expected, right? Many things are there that we need to understand while we are understanding each of these set operations, right? Let us start discussing the distinct method. So what is this distinct method? Now the LINQ distinct method is used to return the distinct element from a single data source. So if you are working with distinct method means you need only one data source. There is no two data source required to work with the distinct method. And if you look at the signature of this distinct method, then it is having two signatures, right? One method doesn't take any parameter and the second method takes one I equivalent comparator parameter. So see guys, whenever I'm saying it doesn't take any parameter, so if you don't confuse with this I enumerable of T source parameter. So this basically is not a parameter, but this basically specify that this distinct method belongs to this class. You can access this method using this I enumerable of a T source, right? So don't consider this as a parameter because this is mandatory. If you are creating an extension method, then that method must be static. That method first parameter must be the type parameter from which it belongs to, right? So similarly, you can say the first parameter just ignore because this is the extension method signature, and from the second parameter onward, whatever the parameter that you need to pass while calling the method. So first of all, so if I'm going to use this fast overloaded version, then I do not need to call any, I do not need to pass anything to this method. But while using the second overloaded version, I need to pass some I equality comparator. What is I equality comparator? When to use I equality compare? That is also we are going to discuss in detail. So what is the difference between these two methods? Means this method doesn't take any I equality comparer, and this method takes the comparer parameter. So this is the only difference, right? Let us understand how to use. See, this is my data source, and this data source contains some duplicate elements. Out of this duplicate element, I want to perform a distinct operation, and I want the result like this. If you want to retrieve only the unique elements, or if you want to remove the duplicate ones, right? If the element appears twice, you only want to show that element once, then you need to use the distinct operation, right? And you can implement this very easily. Let me go and execute these things. So you can see this is my integer collections, collection content two times 3, you can say 2 times 3 times. So number of times the elements are repeated. But once I apply this distinct method, so you can say I'm using the first overloaded version, which doesn't take any parameter, right? And here also using core syntax, right? The point that you need to remember, there is no such operator called a distinct that you can use using core syntax, right? So for that purpose, you need to use the mixed syntax, right? How you can use the mixed syntax? Like this. So this is the syntax, and then you can apply the distinct method, right? So you can see this is enumerable of integer. This is also enumerable of integer, right? So if you want, then you can also apply the toList method, right? So if you also want, then you can also apply the toList method one here also. Once you apply the toList method, then it will convert it to list of integer. It is also converted to list of integer, right? So let me run the application. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any element is repeated here? No. These are the unique elements, right? The duplicate elements it just removed from the collection, right? Any question from anyone? Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is how you need to work with the integer. Now I'm working with the string array. So you can see this is Priyanka, Hina, but here you can see Hina is repeated, but it is in capital letter, it is in small letter. Anurag, Anurag, both are same. Here ABC, here ABC, here capital ABC, here small ABC. Let me make this as ABC. Some combination is there, right? So now names array, I'm applying the distinct method, and let me show you the output. So in the output, what will happen? Let us first observe the output. See, Priyanka is appeared 5, Hina is appeared twice, Anurag is appeared once, and ABC is appeared twice. What it means? Why I'm saying this? This is because the distinct method for the string data, the distinct method, right? What we are using here, he internally compare the values. He internally compare this with this, whether this element appeared multiple times, whether this element appeared multiple times in this collection, of internally some comparison is happening behind the scene, right? That comparison is case sensitive. Case sensitive means if he is finding some uppercase and lowercase character, then he will not treat them as same. He will treat them as different. So in this case, you can see all these letters are capital. In this case, all are small. So he will consider both are different because it is case sensitive. So default comparer, which is used by this distinct method, who doesn't take any parameter, right? That comparer is case sensitive. So in this case, Anurag, both are same. So both are same means he will ignore one. And in this case, he see that BC, these two letters are capital, and here these two letters are small. So he will consider both these two strings are different strings. So you can see here I'm seeing ABC, and here it is printing ABC, right? Now what is our requirement? Our requirement, we don't want this case sensitive to work. We want the case should be insensitive, right? If there is small letter, capital letter, mixed letter, if the value is same, then it should ignore those things. It should consider them as a duplicate element. If that is the case, then you have to use the other overloaded version, which takes the I equality comparer as a parameter. So what you need to use? You need to use string comparer dot ignore, right? You have to use this ordinal ignore case, and that's it. So with these changes, run the application and see the output. So with this comparer, right? So what he will do, he will check and find out the unique value. So now no duplicate elements are there. So what is this? So if you go to the definition of this method, so it is taking some comparer. What is that comparer? I equality comparer of a T source, right? So now what I'm passing this ordinal ignore case. So what is the meaning of this ordinal ignore case? So get a system.string comparer object that perform a case insensitive ordinal string comparison. That means if you are using this ordinal ignore case, then it will return a string comparer object, right? Which perform a case insensitive comparison. So then what it is returning? It is returning string comparer. Now let us go to the string comparer class definition. I'm going to the string comparer definition. Is this comparer definition implement this I equality comparer? Yes, it is implementing the I equality comparer. So as I equality comparer is the parent class of this comparer, string comparer. So I can pass an instance of this string comparer, and that can be held by the I equality comparer, because is the parent of this string comparer. So here I'm passing string comparer of ordinal ignore case. So it is returning an instance of the string comparer, and that can be stored by the parameter what you can see here, I equality comparer. Clear, guys? Clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Right. So this is how the distinct operation work on string data type. But that is fine, right? So now what is our requirement? Okay, now let us see how we can use this distinct method with complex data type. But guys, remember the distinct method, it work with the primitive data type, you can say, or the value data type, you can say, which contains the value. It is not going to work in the same manner with the complex data type like employee, product, student, any user defined classes you create. The working principle is going to be different from value data type to your reference data type. In value data type, it is working fine as expected. But with the reference data type, or you can say with the complex data type, the working nature is going to be different. What is the different? What is the problem we are facing? Let us try to understand one by one. Okay, for that purpose, we are creating one student class, right? So we are already having this student class. Let me create. So this is my student class. You can see this student class having some ID, only two properties, ID and then name. And this student class having some elements, right? This is going to be my data source, and this student class returning me list of elements, right? And guys, remember this student object, whatever the value I'm storing 101 pretty, here also I'm having the same value, right? Here I'm having 102 submit. Here also I'm having 102 submit. Here I'm having ID Hina. Here also I'm having the same ID and the same name. That means what? Some student information I have duplicated in this collection, right? That is what our requirement. Why I'm duplicated intentionally? Why I'm doing this intentionally? That I will show you after some time, right? So basically you are having some collection, and that collection contains some duplicate element. Now let us try to understand now what is our requirement. Our requirement is to fetch all the distinct name from the student collection, right? So if you see the distinct name means these are the names. So Preeti appeared 2 times, Sambit appeared 2 times, Hina appeared 2 times, Anurag appeared 1 time. So distinct name means these are the 4 distinct names. That is what we want in our output. If that is our requirement, then how we can do this? We can do this very easily, right? We already know these things. How? Okay, let me show you these things, right? So student.guest students, right? this is my collection, and I have already told you, if you want to fetch only a single value, then what you need to do? You need to use select operation, select method, and you need to specify what name you want to retrieve, what property you want to retrieve. That property name you want to specify. I want to retrieve the name property, so this will return you enumerable of names, right? And then I'm applying. So then I'm applying or the distinct method on the collection of names, and then I'm applying the toList method. This is the method syntax to retrieve the distinct names from the collection. And if you want to do the same thing, you have to do like this: std from student in student.get students, select std.name. And as we know, there is no such distinct operator available, so I'm applying this distinct method. Additionally, then I'm applying the toList method, right? And then and then I'm looping through this variable, and whatever the distinct name, that what I'm printing here. And in this example, if you run the application, right, then you will see the output as expected. There is no issue, so you will get the 4 information. That is fine. Any question from this example?
No questions.
No question, right? But the real problem will come now, right? So in our previous example, we tried to retrieve the district names. It was as expected. Now what is our requirement? Now our requirement is to select the distinct students. Now I'm not going to select the name only. I'm going to select both ID and name from the collection. So as you can see, our collection contains 3 students are identical, and in our result set, they should appear only once. Let us modify the program and see what happens. So if you remember, so basically what our expectation is, the 4 employees should be displayed, right? So sorry, the 4 students. So it should display these 4 information. So these 2, 3, 1, these are repeated. They should not be appeared in our application. But see what happens. So what I'm doing, I'm student.get student distinct method, and here I'm also doing the same thing, right? I'm not specifying any property because I want the data in its original form, right? That is why I'm using this I'm using this syntax, right? I'm simply calling this distinct method and toList, right? Now run the application. Once you run the application, is the distinct method working here or not? Guys, the
It's not
distinct
working.
method is working or not working?
No.
Not working. Why it is not working? Now it is not working. The reason is, right, whenever we are using distinct method on the collection type, right, on the complex data type, then in that case, it is not checking the value of the properties. It is not checking the value of the properties, rather it is checking the reference address of the properties, right? Now you just tell me. So in this case, one new object will be created or not? In this case, another new object is created or not? Do you think that this object reference address is going to be same with this object reference address? Or do you think that this object reference address is going to be same as this object reference address? No. So whenever you are using the new operator means what? A new object will be created in the memory. And even though the value are going to be same, the object, the reference address is going to be different. Clear or not? Guys? So basically what will
Yes.
happen, okay, let me open the MS Paint. So currently we are creating 5 objects, right? So one object is for first employee, second object, third object, fourth object, right? Fifth object, sixth object, right? This is going to be 7th object, right? It might be possible that the value, right? It might be possible that the value Hina is stored here. It might be possible that the value Hina is stored here, right? But the address, but the reference address, it might be 1000 here. It might be the 1002 here. That means value might be same, but the object reference address is going to be different. So in this case, you might be have the value Hina here. You might be have the value here, IT 103 is also here, right? Let me put the ID also for better understanding. ID is also here, ID is also here, but the reference address is going to be different. So these are the reference address, and the distinct method, the default comparer, right? The distinct method means the default comparer which is used within the distinct method for the complex data type. He is not going to check the value of each properties because he doesn't know how many values are there in your property. If you are creating a class, do you think that the default comparer which is used by the what I can say the distinct method know how many properties are there in the class? So it might be 1 property, 2 property, 10 property, and he also doesn't know what is the name of those properties, right? But what he know, if you are creating one object means there should be some address, and that default comparer is going to compare the address of each object. And in this case, as the address of each object is going to be different, so it will think that there are no duplicate element, and as a result, it's printing all the student information in the console window. Clear, guys? Clear or not?
It's clear.
Right.
How do we
Now,
fix that now?
yeah, so that is fine. But now what is our requirement? But we don't want this duplicate element to be appear. Even though their reference address is the same, as the value is reference address are different, as the value is same, we don't want that element to be appear twice. We only want that element to be appeared once. Why? Because see, if you are having some XML Excel file, and from the Excel file, if you are uploading the data, that might be possible that some of the data might be repeated by mistakenly, right? You might be enter the same name and the same details multiple times in the Excel file, and if you enter those data without making this distinct operation, then the duplicate data is going to be stored in the database, which might be some cause some problem in future, right? So basically, if you want to make sure that unique data should be stored in the database, then we need to apply the distinct operations, right? And if you are going with the default comparer, which is used by the distinct method, then it is not going to work. Why? Because he is going to check the reference, not the value. Now, what is our requirement? Our requirement is to make sure the comparer should check the value, not the reference. If the comparer check the value, right, then he will compare and check which are the unique element, which are the duplicate element. If duplicate, then please ignore them. And how we can solve this problem? Now, to solve this problem, we are mainly having 4 options. We are having 4 options. First of all, we need to use the other overloaded version of the distinct method. If you remember, there are 2 overloaded version of the distinct method, right? If you go to the definition, right, go to the definition, then you will see that this is one overloaded version. Another overloaded version is also there, which is using the I equality comparer interface, right? So one of the option is to use the other overloaded version, which takes the I equality comparer interface. So basically what we need to do, we need to create a class which implement this I equality comparer interface. We need to create an instance of that class, and we need to pass that instance to this distinct method. And as part of that class, we need to implement this I comparer interface, and we need to implement means whatever the method provided by this I equality comparer, that we need to implement. How? Practically we will see. Second option is that we need to override the equals and get has code methods within the student class. If you remember, if you know, in .NET framework, by default, each and every type is inherited from the object class, and the object class provides some virtual method and 2 virtual method, and this equals method and this get has code method, right? They are implemented as virtual method in the object class. As the student class, they either directly or indirectly inherit from this object class. So you can override these 2 methods, right? So if you override these 2 methods within the student class, then that is going to be used for the comparer purpose, right? We will also see this approach. Another approach is that what we need to do, we need to project the output to an anonymous type, right? right? We need to project the output to an anonymous type, and the anonymous type already overrides this equals and get hashcode method. We will see this also practically, how you can project output to the anonymous type and how it is working and filtering the data. And the last option is by implementing the I-equatable interface. This I-equatable interface is inherited from the I-equality comparator interface. You can also implement this I-equality interface. How practically I will show you this, right? So let us understand all these four approaches one by one. And guys, remember these four approaches, what I'm showing right now, it's applicable to all the four, all the rest of the set operation methods, right? So whenever you are using the set operation method, and if you are working with the complex collection, complex data type collection, then by default, the default comparer, what all the set operation use, they are always going to check the reference, and they never check the value. And if you want to check the value, then we are having these four options, right? I will show you this example using one or two set operation, and the rest operation is also for the rest set operations. The same thing you can also apply by yourself, right? So let us understand these four approaches. Let us first implement the I-equality comparer interface. So for that purpose, what we need to do? Let me create a class file with the name student comparer. Right click, add. Right click, add the comparer, student comparer.cs, right? Once you add the class file, let me comment these things. Okay, so you can see this is my student comparer, and it is inherit from I-equality comparer, and I'm specifying the type as student. So basically, in this case, you need to implement two methods, right? So guys, don't think that this equals method is belongs to the object class. If it is belongs to object class, then you have to override. But here I'm not overriding, I'm providing implementation. Here also I'm providing implementation. It means these two method belongs to I-equality. And if you go to the I-equality comparator class, then you can see this class having two methods. One is equals method and another one is get hashcode method, right? So now I'm providing implementation to the equals method. So what I'm doing, I'm checking if object reference are equal, right? If both the object reference are equal, means if both variable are pointing to the same object, means the value is going to be same. In that case, I need to return true, right? And here you can see if object reference equals, right? If any of the object is null, right? So whenever I'm comparing the two objects, right? If one object data I'm passing and if other object is null, then in that case I cannot compare, and in that case I need to return false. Even though if you ignore these two steps, then that is also high, right? And then what I'm doing, and this is our real comparison. So I'm checking if whenever I'm comparing two objects, I need to check the first one object ID property with another object ID property, and one object name property with another object name property. And if this condition returns true, means both are same. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Right. This is the equals method, but if you ignore these things, then also fine. And you need to ignore these things, means in this case, whatever returning, this is also going to return the same thing. But in this case, if any of the object is null, then it will return false. And this condition means if the value is different, then it is going to return a false. So this is the first implementation. And we know whenever we are implementing the equals method, it is mandatory to implement the get hashcode method, because in the equals method internally using this get hashcode, right? So here I'm passing one object. If that object is zero, if that object is null, then return 0. Otherwise, what you need to do, you need to get the hashcode of the ID property. And again, what you need to do, you need to get the hashcode of the name property. As name is a reference type, so you need to check whether it is null or not. If it is null, then return 0. If it is not null, then return the hashcode of that name property. And then you have to write this operator. I don't know what is the name of this operator, right? Simply you need to write this operator, and it is going to return the whether the hashcode of both the properties are same or not, right? So for any property, for any value, there is a unique hash code. And in this case, that hash code it is returning, right? Suppose it is comparing two objects, right? You are passing one object and that object name and ID, it is checking the hash code. And then again, you are passing another object. Again, it is going to return the hash code, right? Hash code of those two properties. And if both the hash code are equal, then the value is equal, else it is not equal, right? So I don't know what exactly the name of this operator, but you have to implement like this. So you basically need to generate the hash code of all the properties, right? Which you want to make sure in the comparison, right? So once you implement this I equality comparer, and if once you provide the implementation for equals and get hash code method, and then you do not need to do anything special. So what you need to do, you just need to create an instance of student comparer class, right? Student comparer, right? That's it. So once you create an instance of student comparer, just pass that instance to the distinct method, right? So with the above changes in place, run the application and see the output. You are getting the unique values or not? Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right. So
Yes,
basically,
sir.
you need to provide implementation, and this implementation is very straightforward. You just need to write this statement where you need to compare the values of each property, and here you just need to generate the hash code, and you just need to return the hash values by using this concatenation operator, right? That's it. So this is one of the approach to implement this right now. Now the second approach is overriding the equals and get hash code method within the student class, right? So if you remember, right? So if you remember, by default, each and every type in .NET inherited from which class? Object class. So means what? Object class provides some, you can say, some virtual method, and that you can override in the method, in the student class, right? So you can see this is my equals method, this is my get hash code method. So whenever I'm calling this method, so I need to compare. So the current object with the object it is receiving. As it is receiving the object in the form of a object, so you need to convert that object to student type. And once, so in this example, right, whatever statement we have written, this is the same statement, right? So this is the same statement here, right? This dot id means current object id. I'm comparing with object dot id, and this dot name means current object name. I'm comparing with student object name, and that's it. And the same thing is also here. And coming to this part, this is also said, I'm getting the id hash code, right? And I'm getting the name hash code, and then I'm returning the by concatenating the ID with the name hash code, I'm returning the hash code. This is the same thing, right? Once you do these changes, right? Once you override the equals and get hash code method within the student class, then you do not need to use this compare. You do not need to pass this comparer, right? You do not need to pass this comparer, right? With these changes, if you run the application, then you will also get the output as expected, right? You are getting the output as expected. So first of all, you can create a comparer, right? And then you need to override the equals and get hash code method by inheriting from equality comparer. Second option is that you can override the equals and get hash code method, and if you override, then you do not need to pass any compare. This is not required anymore. You can comment this, right? If you are thinking that this is working, simply you can comment this, right? So you can comment this, you can run the application, and you will see the output as expected, right? This is another option. The third option that what we need to use is using anonymous type. So using anonymous type means, we need to project the output to an anonymous type, and the anonymous type already implement the equals and gets hash code method, right? Anonymous type already override the equals and get hash code method, right? Like the student. So in this case, the student class override the equals and hash code type, and here we are returning the student type data. So in this case, we are returning the student data. So that is fine. But now, in the previous example, we have written the student data. So in this case, we have not used the select statement, right? Why? Because we are returning the original data. And that original data in the sense student data, and the student class implement the equals and get as code method. So the distinct operator work as expected. Now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to return the student, right? I'm going to project the data to an anonymous type, and in the anonymous type, I'm specifying the data as the student name and the student ID. So if you are confusing what I'm doing, let me split these two different statements. Right, from the student, I'm selecting the ID and the name, and then I'm applying the distinct method. And in this case, we are projecting this output to which type? I'm projecting the output to anonymous type, right? And the anonymous type, right, in this case, already implement the equals and already override the equals and get transport method. So that's why when you run this application, even you can also do the same thing here. I'm also doing the same thing here. You will get the distinct records, right? Now run the application. You are getting the output as expected, because in this case, the anonymous type is already implemented the equals and get hashcode method. Now, if you want, you can also use these things. Now, if you want, you can also project this output to the student type. That is also fine, right? So what is this? Right, so this is also fine. So in the student type, you are projecting the data to student type, and in the student class, do you implement the equals and get task code method? Yes, I have implemented. So in this case also, you will get the appropriate output. Right, now run the application and see the output. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Clear?
No, sir. There's no difference with the previous one.
No, there is no difference, right? So currently I'm using the appropriated type, right? But for now, see, if I'm removing this, I'm also getting the appropriate result, right? So in that case, I'm getting the data as expected, right? But even though I'm specifying this student type, right? So which one I'm using? MS, yes. Even though I'm specifying the student, I'm getting the data as expected. Why? Why? Because the student type is already implemented the equals and get has code method. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm commenting this one. I'm commenting the equals and get has code method, and I'm running the application. Now observe the output. Now you observe what is the difference,
Okay.
right? Because in this case, I'm specifying a type which doesn't implement the get has code and equals method. That's why I'm not getting the distinct value. But if I remove this one, so by default, it is going to use anonymous type. So anonymous type means that type is already implemented the equals and get as code method. And this is the reason why when you run this application, you will get the distinct values. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. The last option that what you can use is I equatable of T interface, right? So in this approach, what we need to do, we need to implement the I equatable of T interface in the student class, and you need to implement the equals method of the I equatable of T interface, and we also need to override the get equals get has code method of the object class. So basically, what we need to do. So here we need to do two things. One is, first of all, your class, this is my student class. It should inherited from I equatable of students. And if you go to the I equatable of I equatable class, then you will see it's an interface, right? And this interface having one method called equals, right? So now what you can do is you can override that equals method. The way you override, right? The way you override the equals method, right? In the same way, you need to implement the equals method, right? So reference equals and reference equals, and then current object with the object it is expecting as a parameter, right? And then you need to override. Say here I'm implementing, this method belongs to IE equitable. And here I'm not implementing, here I'm overriding. Overriding means this method belongs to your object class. If you do not override this method, then this will not work, right? So in this case, I'm providing the get hash code method implementation, and also I'm providing the implementation for this equals method, right? With these changes right now, what I can do is you can simply ignore these things, right? So you can simply ignore these things, right? So let me copy these things, right? So you can run the application and you will get the output as expected. See, you are getting the data as expected or not? Any question from anyone?
No questions.
So this is how your distinct method works, right? So in the way, right, I have shown you 4 different approaches, and these 4 different approaches are applicable to all other operators, set operators like intercept, accept, union. Everywhere they are going to be work in the same manner, right? So that's it for today, and tomorrow we are going to tomorrow we are also having class, right? We'll continue our LINQ discussion tomorrow, same time, 7 a.m. Indian Standard Time. We'll continue our LINQ discussion tomorrow. I will update whether we are going to discuss solid principle on Sunday or not, right? But we are having class tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir.